Hello, my friends. Welcome to the show. Today we are going to be talking about the gaming industry, which is kind of a reflection of the society itself. But whereas the society, our nation, is kind of shifting away from wokeness in a pretty dramatic fashion, pretty quickly. The gaming industry just won't let go. It just won't let go. It's so embedded. The woke hive mind has just infected it so thoroughly, especially here in America. So yeah, let's see what's going on. And Demion's gonna lay down the smack, and I hope you enjoy. All right, 10,000 subscribers. Let's do it.
The downfall of everything diversity, equity, and inclusion related, or wokeness for the sake of convenience, has been nothing short of liberating for someone like me. After fighting against this mind virus, and yes, that's exactly what it is,
Yep.
it seems as though this virus has now decided that it wants to rebrand itself in the future. And as I'll show you, these types are doing everything they can to ensure that this politically charged ideology remains and comes back stronger than ever before. And I'm also going to show you how a certain game franchise you all may know that might be getting screwed over big in the coming years. First, this comes from Owen Gregorian on Twitter, where a media type named Chris Hayes is speaking with Bill Maher live on television. Sadly, I can't show you the full clip because they will 100% copyright strike me if I do that. But here's what happened. Chris Hayes, who's an advocate for DEI and wokeness for years, admits that the political angle of DEI has failed utterly and completely, and that the defunding of USAID, as I covered in my last video, has resulted in a political vacuum where there's much power to grasp, but it's all currently in chaos. Chris Hayes is a devout liberal, as all media types usually are these days, and admits to Bill Maher during their talk that the election led to the general rejection of DEI, with Trump winning absolutely.
Yes.
This scares Chris Hayes because he believes that it will lead to a Republican majority in every conceivable way, which it probably will. But now Chris Hayes has tried to paint a new ideological term to replace DEI, wokeness, and pretty much everything else. He calls it, and no, I'm not kidding, patriotic pluralism.
What?
Yes, a man who pushed you all to get your vaccine, bowed to every censorship and big company, is now trying to pull the patriot card to gain power again.
Patriotic pluralism? That doesn't even make sense. I don't even know what that means. It doesn't flow off the tongue like wokeness.
I can't show you the clip because of copyright, but Chris Hayes said in this clip, and I quote, "There is a message of what I would call like common sense, patriotic pluralism. Pluralism is another word for diversity." I think there is this sense in which there was this sort of backlash of politics. If we're not going to use that one, diversity, let's use pluralism. That's the thing that I think Democrats can win back a majority of message with.
No, I don't think so, because that doesn't even make sense. How in the world does pluralism mean that? That it doesn't. That's retarded.
To interject here for a second, Chris Hayes then moves onto the concept of transgenderism and kids having access to such medical services to support his point. Again, and I quote, "They should mind their own business. If some father and mother have health care for their kid lined up who's trans, just stay out of their business. Let them, the parents, make that decision. That's their decision to make, and you don't have to make that for your family." There's a majority that understands that, like, we all come from different places, and part of what makes this country work is we acknowledge and we negotiate those differences, and that's the thing that I think Democrats can win back a majority of the message, end quote. So essentially what Chris Hayes, who's backed by all the usual suspects to push these political talking points, is saying here is that wokeness and DEI as concepts, they have to die, but they should instead be replaced with the overall new term of patriotic pluralism. The idea here is to use a word that is intrinsically tied to Republican values, that being patriotism, which these media types have used before, in an
Sure.
almost slur-like fashion to smear people who care more about things like America and having things be normal in other avenues like video games or movies.
Yeah, yeah.
But now, since none of this has worked clearly, their bright idea is to essentially lean slightly right to a degree, but just enough to the right that they can now cater to the right-wing crowd,
It's
the
not going to
GamerGaters
work.
and so on, in order to win them back to come into power again. Like it's been said, none of this seems to be going away. They are just rebranding themselves to continue doing what they've been doing all along.
Not going to
They have
work.
no interest in changing their actual ways in a core sense. It's
Well,
just
yeah, of
taking the same
course.
sewage waste, and instead of wrapping it in Christmas paper, they're now going to use Ferrero Rocher golden wrappers instead. But the end result is the same toxic sludge that's beneath the glitz and glamour regardless, and these ideologies, this innate concept, is not stopping anytime soon. Like I said, this of course extends into video games, and there's even more proof that is coming out that this battle is far from over. So like I said in the beginning, a franchise you all know is about to get screwed over big time. Let me show you.
Mm.
I was told this by a source, but it looks like tech4gamers.com has also reported on this, so clearly I'm not the only one who heard this rumor. Anyway, you all know Corinne Bush, the transgender game director who ruined Dragon Age Veilguard. They left BioWare recently and landed a job at Skeleton Key, which is a new game studio startup that is created and funded by Wizards of the Coast, the Dungeons & Dragons company.
Oh, boy.
Well, what I heard, and so did Tech4Gamers too, I guess, is that
Oh,
the
no.
game Corinne Bush is working on is none other than Baldur's Gate 4,
Ah!
and no, I'm not kidding.
No!
Obviously, you all know that Baldur's Gate 3 sold millions of copies and had plenty of
Oh,
LGBT.
that's so horrible. Because now that game is absolutely going to be horrible. It's going to suck.
TQ plus themes within it. However, people will bring up that BG3 at least placed those themes within extreme levels of player choice.
Yes.
Meaning you could play the entire game and not see any of it based on your own choices.
And that is the whole point. I mean, if you want to put this garbage in, I guess, but you're going to have to work extra hard on the game to be able to put those different elements in if you want to see them. But if you don't want to see them, they should be completely void. They should be completely absent from the game. So you can play the game how you want. Look, from my game design history, it is all about choice. And that's all that ever will be. It's choice. That's all the players want. So give them choice. Anyways.
This allowed BG3 to become not only a champion of LGBTQ plus ideals, but a game people all over celebrated for its player choice and deep, complex RPG systems.
Right.
So what I heard is that Corinne has indeed left BioWare to work on Baldur's Gate 4.
But now, if that's the case, it's now a lose-lose. Because she's absolutely going to take a wrecking ball to this game.
And this can only mean that Wizards of the Coast, like Chris Hayes, as I showed in the beginning of this video, are not going to be abandoning the DEI or woke agenda, so to speak, in the future. They will simply just call it things like patriotic pluralism now and continue business as usual, hoping people are too stupid to realize what's really going on. It should come to no surprise that Hasbro, which owns Wizards and D&D, wants another Baldur's Gate 3 level success, and I mean, who can blame them?
Yeah.
Obviously, that game won all the awards and made all the money as well in 2023. But we know from this article in April 2024 that Larian Studios, which made Baldur's Gate 3, has largely just moved on from the franchise completely to something new. The reasoning, I would wager probably, is because Larian knows that they don't own the Baldur's Gate or Dungeons & Dragons license, which means that any merchandise or cross-media promotions that would lead to sales featuring characters like Shadowheart or Lae'zel, Larian would not profit from them because they obviously don't own the IP, even though they did create those characters. So the likelihood is they are probably going to take their own IP that they do own, which is Divinity, by the way, and use their expertise that they have from Baldur's Gate 3 to turn Divinity into their own Baldur's Gate 3, or I guess 4 in this case, success story. Hasbro clearly doesn't want another 20-plus year wait between games, but again, this should raise all the eyebrows and the red flag warning signs that Corinne Bush, of all the people in the games industry, is apparently directing Baldur's Gate 4. Because this will be met with backlash, and Skeleton Key, according to sources, wanted to do the hiring in a hush-hush manner so that there would be no backlash.
Why?
But the internet
Why would they hire
away,
her?
and clearly, I can just bet the way anyone watching this is reacting to this information is exactly why Wizards and Hasbro didn't want this info to get out. But then you have to ask the question, why hire Corinne Bush, who ruined Veilguard, to direct your big-budget Baldur's Gate sequel?
Exactly.
Some will say, well, they have expertise in working on party-based RPGs with choices, but I disagree. Because Veilguard's choices were surface level at best. Besides the final 2 missions, most of what you choose outside of which city gets blighted were superfluous choices anyways. And we can bet that BG4 will have trans surgery scars in the character creator as well, since the only other 2 games to my knowledge to have that option were The Sims and Veilguard, which lo and behold, Corinne Bush directed both of those games too. What I think is going on here is that the leftist woke weirdos out here are treating the Trump ascendancy era as a sort of nuclear winter like the Fallout games. And the based radiation, so to speak, is spilling out, and it's infecting people to have common sense and realize that maybe of these woke talking points are garbage and that they have been lied to all along. Which, yes, they have been. So instead, what these companies who are clearly tied to DEI, sorry, my bad, I meant to say patriotic pluralism, are going to be going around and recruiting all of the yes men, women, and they-themers they can to ensure that this overall agenda does not erase in the wake of the Trump administration completely nuking the USAID care packages that they clearly survived off of. But this then brings up the question, once Baldur's Gate 4 releases, which won't be for years, by the time that game is ready, it'll probably be around the time that the Trump 4-year cycle will likely be nearing its end. And this puts everything into peril. Could, by then, the based wave be dead? Could there maybe be some catastrophic mistakes made by the conservatives that lead to a mass exodus of their ideologies? Could the woke movement find a way to ruin and systematically turn people to their side come the next presidential election? Could this patriotic pluralism, so to speak, which we scoff at right now, suddenly become the new de facto way of life? It's important to think about these things right now because it wouldn't take much for such concepts to grow in power in the future. And maybe by the time the next election happens, players could be yearning for an LGBTQ+ supercharged Baldur's Gate experience. I can't reasonably say never about this because we don't know how things will look 3 or 4 years from now. But what I can say is that this doesn't bode well for the future of gaming at all. We know that the Veilguard writers are already attached to at least games like Ghost of Yotei, that was confirmed, and I reported on that in a previous video too. Because remember, all it took for this agenda, this disgusting mind virus to take hold was for people to lapse in their duties and judgment when they thought that they won. And then it led to the original anti-woke movement, so to speak, which was the first GamerGate. And look at what the second iteration of that movement has done to the games industry already, and then some. Companies and studios are reeling. Not only are they hiring people in secret like Corinne Bush to allegedly work on Baldur's Gate of all things, but I even started to notice that in interviews that game publishers have begun to deliberately avoid putting developers' full names as well. Look at this video here from the recent Assassin's Creed Shadows dev interview that Ubisoft published. Do you notice how the devs are only showing their first names for the most part when they get introduced on screen? I think that they're doing this because they don't want these employees' full names to be leaked so people can look them up on LinkedIn or harass them via social media, which I never condone anyone to do anyways, but I thought that was a peculiar thing when I saw that Shadows video, and I just wanted to point that out to you. So whenever you see other games get promoted in the future, look for that too. See if they're not using last names as well. Could be interesting. But like I was told months ago, and it keeps ringing true, my sources told me that these companies will start using deception to market their games. I guarantee you when Baldur's Gate 4 is announced, it will look like a true sequel. It'll be dark and brooding and full of epicness. There won't be any hint of woke, so to speak, but it will be there. It will be in the character customization, the quest for sure, and sure as hell it will exist just conveniently past the amount of time it takes before the game becomes non-refundable for most players. So by the time you realize that you have been duped, sorry, it's too late, we got your money, and now you're stuck with the product. As Ben Stiller said in this article, Hollywood will be doubling down on all the things you loathe in entertainment going forward as well. Ben Stiller, known for movies like Tropic Thunder and others, said during an interview recently, "Look, I think artists are incredibly inspired now to speak out in creative ways about what's going on in our country. My daughter is an actor. She just graduated from drama school and she's a writer and she wants to make movies." And she said, "All I want to do right now is make stories about women and what they're going through because of what's going on in our country right now."
Oh,
so I think people are really inspired and you're going to see a lot of amazing art come out of it.
Oh,
Well,
gosh.
I wouldn't say amazing, Ben, but it'll be something all right, I guess, because a reminder what Ben Stiller is saying here isn't far off from what's already happened. When Trump first won in 2016, a lot of art was made that spat on conservatives specifically and had loads of white male villains in it as a big FU to Trump himself. And it looks like that will be repeating. Ben Stiller continues in his interview where he says, "Yeah, I think you have to be true to who you are in terms of what you create, but yes, for sure. And I think we all have to kind of look at ourselves and say, okay, what message are we putting out there with whatever it is we make? Even if it's a comedy, drama, or whatever it is, it doesn't all have to be political. It has to be true to who you are. We're all affected by the world that we're in, so hopefully it's going to be a reflection of the experience that you're having in some way. True to who you are."
Oh,
yeah,
brother.
you're about to see some really insufferable things getting made in the future, dear viewer. The fact that Ben Stiller specifically looked to his daughter, who outright just stated that they just want to make stuff about feminist in Trump's America. Oh yeah, you know what they're saying, and no, we
That's
will
gonna
not
be
be
awesome.
watching your slop. But this propaganda has been in overdrive for a very long time. You can't look anywhere without some company pushing their DEI or patriotic pluralism in some way. Like here's Microsoft Vancouver showing off their pride stuff during a parade. Notice how Microsoft hires all kinds of people of all genders. And some of them even wear furry suits, I guess. The point is that
gosh.
all of this is done for ESG, or economic, social, and governance, which is a social credit system score, if you will, although I wouldn't be
poor
surprised if
kids.
the concept of ESG gets rebranded as well in the future. Maybe they can just call it eBucks, and the more ESG you get, you can redeem it via an online store for digital currency, like in Fortnite or something. Then Asmongold recently spoke about how these woke individuals should all leave video games alone. And a big reason why they're such a big target on things like USAID when it comes to their connection with funding the very propaganda that has been ravaging every corner of the world so much is that they specifically targeted video games with this stuff. And as we all know, gamers are some of the craziest, most loyal, and frankly autistic people there are in the world. And you made their games lame and gay, and so they made it their mission to find you and destroy you, and it's really all their
Lame and
fault.
gay.
Basically, if USAID and wokeness never targeted video games, they'd probably be operating business as usual. But instead, you made Harley Quinn shoot Batman in the head on a park bench in Suicide Squad, and you did stuff like put trans surgery scars in a dark fantasy franchise like Dragon Age. So sorry, but y'all gotta go now. Anyway, another user named Kazu, don't harass this person, but they retweeted an Asmongold post saying, "You guys are genuinely so effing pathetic, it's quite literally just video games." Ah yes, downplaying the complete bastardization and ruination of everything we love is but a nothing burger to someone like Kazu here, isn't it? Why are you all mad that they put worms in your burger? It's literally just worms, guys. Stop being so mean. Just eat the burger anyways.
Just do it.
So what if they're puberty blocking the kids and jailing the parents who refuse to allow their children to be trans? It's literally just kids, guys. Anyways, just go make more kids if you're so mad about it. So what if your favorite movie franchises are now full of women who make everything lame and gay? It's just movies. It's not like they're real anyways. This laying on your back starfishing way of going about what offends you or not is exactly how these people in the powers that be continue to ravage and destroy every single thing you love in this world. People like Kazu are the prime model citizen of the USAID corruption. An NPC who will accept any slop down their throat because if they're telling me to eat it, surely it must be good for me, right? Kind of person. But they double down further where they said, like, yes, you should care about your hobbies and advocate for things to not get censored or disrespected by suits who don't give an F about the hobby, but celebrating people losing their jobs and pulling the "you should have left us gamers alone" is so embarrassing, man. No, Kazu, it's not embarrassing. What's embarrassing and frankly pathetic is that you actually chose this hill of all the hills to die on when you know deep down that it's moronic of you to even suggest otherwise. If you're unwilling to stand up for the things you love, that's how tyranny wins. If someone like Kazu was in control of Gamergate, it simply would never exist, and slop like Veilguard would have won all of the awards. And Stellar Blade would have been censored into oblivion or just banned from sale because big boobs are scary to people like this. I can't imagine living my life thinking that allowing corrupt freaks to destroy not only my favorite pastimes, but gain the power to genuinely threaten me with censorship of my voice, or the loss of my job and then restrict how I make a living for myself, and go as far as to say that if I don't agree that we should let kids have their bodies mutilated, that I am somehow in the wrong here and should be thrown in the gulag for speaking my mind. No, before maybe we had to pretend that we could stomach these ideologies when you weirdos were in power, but now we don't have to do that anymore. We've seen the true face of this, and it's clear that what these people want to be considered the de facto way of life is nothing but a perversion of what life should actually be. They want a world where everyone is genderless, medicated to the nines, scared to speak up, and instead live with their heads looking down so often, they may as well be crawling on their knees instead of walking upright. We don't have to listen or pretend to be sympathetic with woke freaks anymore because they lost, and if you ask me, we should be doing everything we can to ensure that none of this ever rises up again in some new mutated perfect cell from Dragon Ball Z form ever again in the future. We should be destroying all of it, ripping and tearing until it's done, and then burning it all and then nuking it from orbit for good measure to ensure that it never rises up again in the future. The wokeness, this patriotic pluralism, whatever it is you want to call it, it is exactly what it's always been. It is, for lack of a better term, the true anti-life equation, a concept of living your life, devoid of everything that makes you human, to ensure that people who hate you can control you and do what they want with you or your kids whenever it pleases them.
Yeah, I mean, it's truly the plan of the adversary. And we need to fight every day to make sure this stuff doesn't rise up. Jesus, it's just... I can't believe we even have to be dealing with this stuff. It's so stupid. Come on, people. Stop being sheep.
It is a rejection of the natural cycle of the world, and it has since permeated and infected its way to every known facet of society. Whether it's schools, video games, all the way up to government, it's all been infected by this so-called anti-life equation of wokeness. Benefited from this and used these talking points to subjugate you, are now trying to unironically convince you that they in fact never existed and you should gaslight yourself into not seeing the world for what it actually is so that they can continue to operate in secret again. And how deluded or stupid do you have to be to realize that they are yet again trying to use the same talking points and tactics to convince you again into the same subjugation they had you all in around 2020 to 22? Are you really going to be stupid and not realize that if given the chance, they would absolutely try and do this all over again? Look at video games. Had Gamergate 2 not happened, then what released in 2024, which was full of slop by the way, from games, movies, and then some, would have become the norm going forward. But what happened instead? That's right, players rejected it all. And because of that mass rejection, it has led to a new meta, where these companies and studios who once thought they were bulletproof are quickly starting to realize that, wait a second, we can't keep doing what we're doing anymore because we've been found out. The vampires, so to speak, have had the light placed on them, and they are now trying to convince you to turn the light off and walk away. No, this is not how it works anymore. We don't have to do this. We don't have to live through another 2016 and 2024 period ever again in our lives.
I hope not.
When everything we loved turned to slop and the things we loved were destroyed by people who want to ruin everything and had the hubris to believe that they could get away with it. We don't have to do this anymore. And I need people to know and see this so they can wake up and stop living in a false reality anymore. The fact that you had people like Elon Musk recently just flat out state that he doesn't trust the gaming news sites anymore, I mean, I agree. Most of them are just complete slop. They don't speak for me in any way anymore. The only gaming website I truly think that is just for the players is probably Gamatsu. Because they just post game news and that's it. There's no dumb opinion pieces like The Gamer or PC Gamer, for an example. But where this all leaves us is that the fight isn't over. They lost, yes, but they're now trying to pick up the pieces and rearrange them in such a way that they can come back with a vengeance. And it's up to everyone to stay informed and focused to ensure that what they did to not just video games, but everything never rises to prominence ever again. Because I don't think the gaming industry or movies could survive another disaster like this, if I'm being honest. These DEI freaks are political monsters, and as a song I really like once said, the vampires feed on the wars of mankind. And these creatures that clothe themselves in bright colors, destroying everything, must be gatekept and forced into accountability. And if we all do our jobs right, there won't have to be a need for a GamerGate 3 as long as we ensure that this dies forever now. But what do you think about all of this? Let me know. Thanks for watching. Subscribe. Take care of yourselves. Let me know what else I should cover. We can win this. Keep up the good work.
You are the best, Endymion. Your videos are always so good, and I appreciate the hard work you put into them. So go visit Endymion and subscribe to his channel because he definitely is worth it. All right, well, listen, we need to be diligent, and we need to do our part in making sure that this beast never gains consciousness again. This beast of wokeness. All right, well, listen, if you enjoyed the video, please subscribe, like, share the video, slap that bell so you always know when I put up a new video. And yeah, if you want to, you could also, you know, go get some merch. It's 22% off right now of all merch, so that'd be great. Take advantage. It's 12th to the 17th. Yeah, so anyways, until the next video, stay safe, know that you are loved and appreciated, and have a great day. Bye.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear that the thoughts build up until I can't hear.